Welcome to Sit and Boot. I am Tashai Wright, your host, and from Scorpion to Eagle to Phoenix. We're here again today with Jianny Adamo, a licensed mental health counselor, and she's a wonderful co-host here. And we're talking about generational trauma, and we've spoken about this already, but Jianny hasn't really gotten into her story. So we're here to really get into the Argentinian tango and how we got there. Jianny, tell us about that. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Tashai, for having me here. I enjoy working here with you and being able to talk about our stories, being able to share our experiences, and hopefully touch lives and allow others also to hopefully move through their healing, because that's ultimately what we are aiming for.
Absolutely.
So today I wanted to touch upon my story, because I released my book, From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, 7 years ago. And that dealt with the sexual abuse that I'd inherited, unfortunately, because these are cycles we inherit.
Right. Yes.
There was nothing that I've done wrong, or as any of us who are survivors of anything, we've done nothing wrong. It's not our fault that these things have happened.
But we do think that it's our fault, right?
Yeah. That's one part of the problem. We carry a lot of shame, thinking that what happened to us was part of our fault, but it's not.
Yeah.
So that book dealt with the sexual abuse trauma and narcissistic abuse, which is a lot of mental and emotional abuse, a lot of manipulation and control that's coming into a relationship. So that book dealt with that. So it's been 7 years since I wrote the book, and there's still been more healing, and I still have been on a journey of evolution.
Right.
And the latest part of this journey that I've been on has been really rewarding for me, because it has really tied this to my to the original, let's say call it to the original trauma, the generational trauma.
Right.
And that line comes in through my maternal grandfather back in the Dominican Republic. So we're going way back.
Way back. Yeah. So now tell us, since you're the resident expert here at Suit and Boot, and you've graciously done that, can you tell us what generational trauma is and kind of explain a little bit about that before you?
Yeah, so generational trauma is usually trauma that we pass on from one generation to the next. So it gets passed down, let's say, from a grandmother to a daughter to a grandchild or a grandfather. And these are things that continue to be continue to move forward because of silence. No one is looking at this and talking about it, and it hasn't been dealt with. But the minute we start talking about these things, and it has the opportunity to be broken. The problem is, as you already know, the family doesn't want to talk about
it. Of course not. They want to maintain the status quo.
Yeah.
Everything is fine.
Everything's great.
Bury the head in the sand.
Yes. Yeah. Everything's great. What are you talking about?
Right.
So this is why we end up having to find support groups or therapists, or an empowerment coach, or someone that knows trauma and generational cycles. Okay, so this year I got involved with a different type of therapy modality, because I love growing. I love the education around the different ways of healing, and healing the body, the mind, the emotions.
Right.
So I got involved with something called family constellations.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Tell us more about.
Yeah, this comes from I believe he's a German psychiatrist or psychologist who went to Africa and observed how the Africans were dealing with their issues and their problems and their traumas. And it was always held within a community. It was very communal. Okay. And it works with the energy field, which can feel a little woo-woo for people, but you don't have to understand it.
It's just a feeling, just what you already know and what you kind of...
And it's intuition also.
Yeah.
There are things that are vibrating just intuitively without
just gotta pick up on them. Yeah.
So that's kind of how that was operating. But what happens is if you're being constellated, and obviously I want, because I want to be constellated, which means I get to speak to the facilitator, and then the rest of the participants are active participants, because they're going to feel and express things that mean something to me or my family. That's how that works. So anyways, I did several of those sessions throughout the winter and into the spring months this year. And what was very clear for me was which is what I had originally kind of thought about when I finished writing my book. I knew that the sexual abuse was coming most likely from my maternal grandfather, that there was something there with him that was causing this issue for me. He was highly narcissistic. Let's just start there.
Right.
Had 30 children. Yes, you heard right.
Oh my God.
30 children with multiple women.
Right, because I was going to ask with one woman, because, she would not be doing anything else.
No. Exactly. So yeah,
Pretty difficult.
so he obviously was a womanizer and he loved women in his ways. That's what he would say. He loves women, but in the truth, he's using women. That's not love. So, anyways,
Yeah.
Okay. So he had 30 children. So my mom is one of 30.
Oh wow.
Yes. And it sounds like her mother might have been one of the last of the concubines and mistresses. And
concubine.
yeah,
Wow.
because he died 5 years after my mother was born. While my grandmother was still young, he must have been, because we don't know much about this guy.
Right. Because he was just dropping his seeds forever.
Exactly.
Yes, that was convenient
So anyways,
for him.
We did not know. My mother never really talks much about him. In fact, I didn't even know that her parents weren't married until in my 40s.
Oh,
That's
wow.
when I found out.
There goes the silencing again, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, but there's so much shame around it that
Yeah.
no one talks about it.
Yes.
Talking about
Absolutely.
all the silence. All right, so she's born to a couple that aren't married. There is, they might have been lovers, but it was not a committed relationship. And ultimately, he dies. My mom is 5, and her sister. There were 2 girls born from that relationship. They go off to go live on his sister's house. An aunt raises my mom and her sister because my grandmother was poor. He was rich. My grandmother was poor. So my mom and her sister go off to live to the rich aunt because they can afford to, have the girls there. So then I don't know anything else other than that about my grandfather, that he was pretty much a womanizer. There's not a lot of information. So coming through this constellation, one of the things that came out of is that I needed to face like each of my predators in one of them. Not every constellation you're doing the same thing. Different things come up energetically. So in one of them, I had to actually face my predators, like people lined up, and they represent males and females. They just lined up. And they represented my different predators. And in that lineup showed up a couple behind them, which represents the past. And that was my grandfather and my grandmother, which I knew because they were like an arm in arm. They were like lovers.
Okay.
That's what they were. So in that constellation, I realized that, this is the origin for me and these predators, because my grandmother was really young. She might have been, I don't even know. She might have been like late teens. She might have been early 20s.
Right.
And he was probably like in his 50s.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So this is like a very, the age.
There's a huge age gap. Okay.
So he was predatory.
Right.
Like,
of course. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, this is quite common down in the Caribbean and all these islands. So this is nothing new.
I mean, there are only so many women on the island that you can have 30,
Yeah.
I mean, so do you even know the dynamic of how many women produce the 30 children?
No.
So it's just like.
My mom never even talks about her. I don't even know if she knows all her 30 siblings.
Right.
She knows her mom's side of the family.
Right.
But her dad, she only knows a handful. So, yeah. So all of that was in secret. None of it was talked about. But all I know is that I have had nothing but like exploitive relationship.
Right.
And I'm the only one divorced in my family. So I'm the only one who inherited this cycle.
Right.
And so I needed to understand, why am I still attracting like all these predatory individuals and exploitive men into my life, which I will not allow myself to get into a relationship with, but I could see the signs and I walk away.
Right.
And it has been happening like year after year after year until finally the last person that I attracted this year, the minute I recognized this very quickly. The minute I met him, I knew he represented my grandfather.
Oh,
My grandfather.
wow.
And I also knew it was finally time for me to say goodbye to my grandfather in an honoring way, even though I knew this represented my grandfather.
So that's interesting, Gianni, because it seems as though you're attracted to a certain type and,
Energetically, not
right,
physically,
because you know that's not what you want,
no.
but that's what energetically
Mhm.
we're attracted to. I really wonder why that is,
Mhm.
because I find the same thing, right? So we're kind of attracted to what we're probably comfortable with, what we know,
Mhm.
right?
But I don't know. I'm assuming you're in the same position as me. I get chased.
Mhm.
I don't chase. I chase.
Of course.
So that energy's coming this way. I have a target up my right here.
They attract us, or I don't know, we attract them. I don't know what it is, but yes,
They're like,
absolutely.
they're like, here's a nurturing, caretaking,
Yes, let me let y'all.
smart, and she'll handle the whole relationship for us,
Absolutely.
because that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Strong, independent women who can
overachiever.
handle
Yes.
the whole thing for them, because they won't put 2 cents into their relationship
Yeah.
once they hook you.
Mhm.
Yes. So anyway, so I'm like, oh, here's my grandfather representative. So that was actually a really beautiful and fun relationship, I gotta
Mhm.
say. He was a heck of a lot of fun. We had
Right.
an amazing time. We laughed a lot. It was thrilling. My personality and his have a lot in common. We're both fire. So we love adventure. We love novelty.
Oh yes, love to travel.
Yeah, to travel.
Yes,
We
that
love-
type of thing.
We love the luxury lifestyle. So that was like all of that lined up. I'm like, yes.
have someone to kind of maintain the, like, hey, calm down.
Exactly. All of that lined up. But he was still a 2-timer, womanizer,
Yes, yes.
charming,
course.
narcissistic, the whole 9 yards. And so eventually it came to a hit, and then the relationship needed to end. But what I got out of that was that I was able to have a good time, recognize what was happening, not allow myself to like get hooked and run into like falling in love with someone I shouldn't be in love with. I was able to like say goodbye from a place of honor and respect for me and for the individual. Which for me, I felt like I finally closed the gap in this Pandora's box in my life.
So wait, let me ask you this question, right? So you went back to say your grandfather, but what about your dad? Because a lot of us, that's like the first person that we see, right? The influence in our lives. But your grandfather wasn't really there in your life because you didn't really spend so much time with him. So how do we connect that influence, that the person that's not physically there, but they're creating this generational cycle that's living on? Like, how does that
Excellent
work?
question. That's such a good question. Everyone in our family has to be acknowledged, including the babies that were aborted, need to be acknowledged. They're part of your family's
Absolutely.
generation. So if there are things being repeated, look at the family members that are not accounted for. They're like the ghosts that keep haunting
Ghosts
you.
of the past. Oh yeah.
They keep coming back until you finally acknowledge
Oh
it.
yeah.
And this is basically what's happening, at least with me
Yeah.
in this scenario. He was a highly narcissistic man with sexual
Proclivities. I mean,
exactly
yeah.
out of control.
Because in the Caribbean, I mean, we don't talk about sex, and not talking about it. There are these natural things happening in the body, especially for men and, little boys. And if they're not talking about it, they're just going to act up on it. So I would assume that, your grandfather, from that time, they never spoke on it. So, but their bodies are, they want to do stuff. So what do you do in that aspect? So they're just going to do what the body and the nature is
Exactly, leading them to do.
absolutely.
Yeah. So in this scenario for me, he was not acknowledged in my family. Remember, my mom barely knew him.
Right.
She knows very little about him. So he was not ever really spoken about because he was not even, the father wasn't even married to the mom.
Right.
My grandmother. So
that shame, that
Mm-hmm.
they want to keep that silent, they want to keep that hidden, so it's just not talked about. So it's like the ghost of the past rearing its ugly head. Really.
Yeah. So I actually wrote my grandfather a letter as I came to an end with this certain individual, the last person that I was in a like dating relationship with for several months.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my grandfather a letter and I said to him, thank you for sending me all of your representatives. Since age 17, I have been dealing with narcissistic men. So I said, thank you. And I said, each of these men have taught me a lesson. There were like 7 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I said, the first one taught me to respect my body and that my body is sacred.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
It's sacred. The second one taught me about honesty and how important it is to be honest within our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
The third one taught me about commitment and safety and security, because that was my husband and he was so good on safety community. Like he was too safe.
Oh, wow.
I was running from all the predators. Yeah, I was running.
Right.
So I married really, really safe.
Oh, yes.
He
It
was
was like the
safe.
extreme
Yeah.
over
We
here.
were really depressed,
Yeah.
but the passion was low. So that's what this happens in marriages all the time.
Yeah.
You could have really high friendship,
Mhm.
companionship, and then you end up having very low passion,
Mhm.
sensual intimacy with these high friendship
Yeah.
relationships.
Yes.
So that was
Mhm.
my ex-husband. So each of them taught me something beautiful about myself and something beautiful about relationships. And the last one was he aligned me back to the fact that I am worthy of riches and luxuries and beauty,
Yeah.
extraordinary luxury and
Absolutely.
beauty
Right.
and comfort. Um, and now, like it's part of me. It's part of who I am.
Yes. Yes.
In the past, I would be ashamed, like, oh, I don't need to be like so into these things or whatever. Like, oh my
You
God,
just felt guilty
Yeah.
because you shouldn't like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we like finer things,
Mhm.
and there's nothing wrong with that. But because of our culture, we've been taught to just have a stiff upper lip, just survive and go through it and not just enjoy
Mhm.
the hard work, because
Mhm.
it's really the product of what we've achieved.
Mhm.
Right?
That's
We've
correct.
come so far from our moms or dads or grandfathers. We've learned a lot of lessons. And how do we put what we've learned and still stay true to our families and our generation? And
Also, we are immigrants.
Mhm.
So our families struggled a lot being if they were the first ones that came in.
Yes, absolutely.
And I was a baby or a child when my parents came in. So like there was a time in our history that my parents couldn't make ends meet and they had to do like
Mhm.
food stamps.
Yeah.
So we get tied into the family trauma.
Oh, yes.
And then we are loyal to their poverty and their scarcity. And then we feel guilty for
Absolutely.
excelling and being more successful and having
Mhm.
more money, even though we want-
Survivor's guilt.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I struggle with that so much
We all do.
because, and I don't think that our parents or grandparents realize that well, at least I did. I look at my mom and dad who they both worked hard. That's one thing I can say. They're very hardworking people, salt of the
Mhm.
earth, a lot of the emotional things they didn't know any better
Mhm.
because that's what they got. Speaking of generational trauma, right? That's what mom and dad, their moms and dad gave back to them. And a lot of them are just doing their best, but they are bringing on the same cycle that they couldn't speak to their parents about. They're passing it on to us.
Mhm.
And it's very difficult. They don't realize that to open up and be able to say what we need to say, it's just giving us a voice for the predators out there, the ones that are not, the ones that are in the family, they're bad enough. But then we have the outside, the stranger danger.
Mhm.
We're not prepared for the stranger danger. And that's why we attract a lot of this, because we think that, I assume anyways, the stranger out there that's giving us that same comfort that we're used to from the generational trauma.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very familiar. And once it's familiar, it feels like it's safe.
It's safe,
Not
right?
saying that it's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just familiar.
Absolutely. And then a lot of the times I assume because you were just saying that you chose a husband that he was too safe.
Yeah.
So we go to the extreme. It's either it's not safe enough or it's too safe. How do we connect that? How did you overcome that?
Well, that information, like I had to resolve that for when I released my book 7 years ago, because I had to understand, like, that's when I really understood why I married my husband, when I was writing that book and understanding like what happened. And I realized, oh, he was my safe haven. He was supposed to keep me safe from all of these men. But that's not his job. That's not.
Really, but it's too much. That's a heavy burden for anyone.
It is. But that's our subconscious. That's what the subconscious shows him.
Right.
That's why my subconscious like fell in love with that one, because it's like, this one's not going to rape you. This one's not going to dominate you or control you in ways that the other men have. So then I went to the opposite, which is the guy who's not going to do that. But
there was not that sexual attraction because I wonder if maybe or you might have associated that to more so like a father figure, because that's what we are looking for in a father figure, right? Someone that's safe.
For me, it wasn't the father figure, because I already have a dad that I adore, and he's in my life. It was more, he was my child and I was his parent. So he was someone,
so you were his mom. Okay.
Someone I could control.
Oh, that's very interesting.
When we are the survivors of abuse. We are the top ones.
Absolutely.
And we don't cave, because I didn't cave, obviously.
Right, of course.
I'm very resilient. But that means I'm not going to submit. I'm not submitting to anything or anyone, right? So that means I'm now in a position of power.
Yeah.
But then I'm the controlling part.
Absolutely.
In that relationship, I was the parent, he was the child. And even though I wanted a partner, he would not rise. He refused to rise to his position of partner. He wanted to stay where he was. He loved that position. He was a baby in his family. He was very much the mama's boy. Mommy very nicely.
That is
and
so
he expected that from me. And I was like, no, I want the partner. So we ultimately had to go.
But I think that's so interesting because it's so similar. I married a mama's boy.
We got the power. We got the power witness.
Yes, because that is kind of us taking that power back and, doing that. And, my ex-husband, sweet guy. And I think that, we want to be so much in control that we pick these people that we think are going to be the opposite, and we're not looking to say that there are these other problems that could come with that we weren't even thinking about. We're not conscious of that. And so we're like, all right, we're getting away from this that we know, red flag that we don't want, but we're not even conscious enough to see the other red flags that we were not even paying attention. Because just kind of shifting for me, when I was trying to pick a partner, I was like, oh, I don't want a man like my dad, because he's a cheater, stuff like that. But I ended up dating a man like my dad because that energy is the same thing. It's a similar thing culturally and everything, generationally, island men, it's so much, we're secondary and so on and so forth. So we subconsciously do the same thing and we don't even realize that we're doing the same thing.
Because now we flip to the other side and we're the ones in control and we're like, we're not letting go of control. But of course, in the healing journey, you do let go of control because control is an illusion. There's no such thing as control.
Nothing
of your safety. There's no such thing as that. We could wake up tomorrow and have a problem physically that will never be the same again. We could have a car accident, will never be the same again. This is all an illusion. So.
And I realized that, speaking of control, that I realized that once I let go of trying to control the environment, the situation, and try to navigate it the way that I wanted to be, it was like the weight of the world was lifted on my shoulders, right? You can't control everything. You can't navigate everything because that's when it's another human being. We can't control people.
Exactly.
We can only control ourselves.
That's true.
And we have to look within ourselves and everything like that. So how do you think that your grandfather, kind of going back to the generational trauma, how do you think that your grandfather, his actions and how he was with how do you think that lived on throughout your family cycle?
Oh, that's another good point. And something else that I learned through this family constellation thing that I did in the beginning part of this year, is that as women,
Mm-hmm.
we are already in our mother's womb, at least the egg is, when our mother is like 6 weeks inside of our grandmother's womb.
Mm.
I forget when the eggs are present and
Right.
the embryo, but it's like that's something like 6 weeks or whatever. Don't quote me.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that part of us, as the granddaughters, we're already experiencing what our mother and our grandmother is experiencing. So,
Oh,
so if you think
yeah.
about her emotions are being used or her highs when they're together,
It's
all
coming
of
down
that,
into you in the bloodstream,
yeah,
kind of like coming
it's already
over.
in me.
Yes, it's in the DNA. Absolutely. It's kind of similar to when, if a woman is pregnant and,
Mhm.
the man or whatever is stressing her out and whatever it is, and she's stressed out, the baby's stressed out.
Mhm.
The baby has anxiety, and all that anxiety, the child is born, the child is crying when, at night excessively, that goes to the mental state of the mom that the mom was in, because I think that we bring on the anxiety to the child, especially in that stage, that very vulnerable stage.
Exactly. And it was made known to me during that constellation that I was having to say goodbye to the predators and deal with my grandfather and my grandmother, that I chose to do life differently than they did. And that
Very important.
very
To break
differently.
the cycle.
Yes. And in addition to that, because I've always wanted a family of my own, I divorced my ex-husband because he didn't want children at the end of the day.
Oh,
And
wow.
he literally told me he loved being he wanted to continue being in like that parent-child role that we were in. He didn't have a
Oh, so he didn't want
he
some
did not like
taking over
bingo.
that.
He felt like
Yeah.
a child would be placed in his life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so I'm like, this is never gonna work.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to grow up. Okay. So, but there are no mistakes in this universe. I still chose him for a reason. And then through that constellation, I understood that I chose to do life differently than how my grandmother and grandfather did.
Mm-hmm.
She was used for sex and she was used for her children because these guys were just, they just want to have sex and they want
Plant
to
their seed.
Yeah.
And
And so I refused to allow any man to use me for sex and for their children. And unfortunately, that man and I would not have kids because I have not resolved that whole family legacy thing
Right.
until now, until later in my life.
And for a woman, we don't have that luxury of time that the man has. Essentially, our biological clock is ticking.
Mhm.
And by the time we can recognize certain of these generational traumas, it might even be too late for us.
For the children,
Yeah,
unless you adopt.
Mhm.
Exactly. So I've had to take a look at like this whole, like, how is it that I keep attracting all the same type of guys, these
Mhm.
exploitive men? I'm like, I don't, I just never understood. Then understanding that this is coming through my grandfather, it was never spoken through my grandmother or my mother. It was just accepted and it was a total silence. But yet my grandfather kept reappearing and reappearing in my life by every representative he sent me. Reappearing until I finally this year realized, I got you, Grandpa. I know who you are.
Yes.
I know who you are, and I acknowledge you.
It seems like he was being silenced and like he's like saying, "Hey, Siri, look at me, right?"
I know.
You're hearing him now,
Yes.
right?
I got you.
And
Yes.
he's sending you a message,
Yes.
essentially, right?
Mhm.
Because maybe from beyond, he wants to break the
Yes.
cycle and
Exactly.
kind of like.
And you know what I also received from all of this? My grandmother was poor. My grandfather was rich. My mother was raised on the rich side of the family.
Mhm.
But she married a middle class man, my dad. So we stayed middle class.
Mhm.
My mother's inheritance is upper class. That's what I'm inheriting, and I proclaimed it, girl.
Oh, name it and claim it. Oh, yes. I'm a big believer in that. Name it and
Exactly.
claim it.
But if we're in silence, we're not playing. We're birthright.
Everything.
This is my birthright.
I'm claiming my yacht for the longest time, okay? It is coming. I have been claiming this yacht for the longest time. It will be coming.
And I'm not friends with cause.
I will tell you, listen, and this is how we have to materialize what we want, and we have to talk about, because we can't change the past.
No, we cannot.
Right? We just have to make the best of what the future has in
Mhm.
store for us and break the chains, break the cycle
That's right.
so that we can make it better for the future.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, I know I can't change what happened to me, but I can open and I can have my voice be heard.
That's right.
So maybe we don't have to repeat the past.
That's
You
correct.
know, and that's why we try to learn, and staying silent and not knowing the past or knowing your family tree, right? Because I don't really know my family tree either.
Mhm.
I ask my parents all the time, and I think a lot of their history, it's a lot of shame, so they don't want to talk about it.
Mhm.
But I'm not looking to learn that for the shame. I just want to know where it came from, and how we can make it better for everyone else.
Mhm.
So how do we do that? How did you know what I'm hearing, it's like you listened, you picked up on the signs that the universe was sending you, your grandfather was sending you.
Mhm.
I mean, is that what we sometimes need to be conscious and aware of, what's around us, what's coming for us, and listen?
I think there's a few things involved here. Being open.
Mm,
Being open and really hearing and seeing what's going on and not shoving it under the rug.
yeah.
And the second thing is who we associate ourselves with. There are many people who don't believe in anything. So
Oh yeah.
you might want to find a few friends that believe in things.
Oh yeah. If you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything.
Exactly.
So that's very important.
But finding friends and support systems or a therapy group or any kind of like environment that's going to promote healing
Mm-hmm.
and growth and authenticity.
Right.
I think it's important for all of us to be involved with those types of communities.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
healing doesn't happen isolated.
No,
Not an isolated thing.
absolutely not. And we met through legs, and that has been a great and essential part of my healing journey, the Ladies Executive Goal Society that we met
Mhm.
at or whatever. So yeah, I agree. 100% healing is a community.
Yes, we have to be part of a community. So find your community, find your people, find your tribe that believe in you, and also believe in growth and and expansion.
Absolutely.
So as like just to kind of bring it home, like bring it back home, and as I tie this story for me is, you know, I always kind of felt like a bit of guilt or shame that, I didn't want to, even when because my ex-husband came from the upper class. So he came from wealth. I would never tell people where I lived
Oh,
because I was
really?
ashamed
Oh, wow.
because I didn't think I belonged.
Mhm.
It was an upper class community in northern New Jersey.
Right.
Very beautiful.
Mhm.
And because I came from the working class as an immigrant,
Right.
I felt ashamed to even say that I lived in the community that I did. It took
So
me
you
like
were wearing
years.
a mask, essentially. Yeah.
It took me years to actually be like, it's okay. I can say where I live. because
Absolutely.
I felt like I did not belong.
Right.
That's how bad that whole situation is. And now, as I complete the cycle with my maternal grandfather and the cycle that I inherited through him with narcissistic men,
Mhm.
I can now accept that I am worthy and I deserve extraordinary success, extraordinary, beautiful things and luxurious things. There is no shame now.
Yeah.
There's no guilt.
Mhm.
So that is something
It's
that
okay to have
Mhm.
good things, and it's okay to, relax and, accept it and work on yourself. And it's okay to have self-care. You
Mhm.
deserve it. We deserve it.
Yep. So that's kind of like where I've come through now, and that's where I am today.
That is so beautiful. And I just love that. And Gianni, thank you so much for being here. Now, is there anything before we go that you want to let anyone know, and to kind of help them overcome anything, or just to kind of, on a last note, to wrap up with anything?
Sure. Never give up on yourself or your dreams.
Mhm.
Never ever give up on yourself or your dreams. Always keep moving forward
Mhm.
and just finding people that can support you through that journey. That's to me the most important thing. And never giving up on yourself or your dreams.
Awesome. Awesome. The last thing that I will say, I've been listening to the soundtrack for Wicked, and it's like defying gravity. I mean, it is such a
Ooh.
beautiful thing. And I think we can all defy gravity in our own way.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be my path, your path. We all have a different journey. And just listen to your calling, because your grandfather has been yelling at you.
I know.
Listen.
Mhm.
So sometimes we need to slow down, shut up, and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that is my final thought. Thank you so much. This has been Suit and Boot, from Scorpion to Eagle to Phoenix. Thank you, Jianny, for being here
Thank
once
you.
again. And thank you for listening. And we rise. Thank you.